For most of human history, we were on the menu. Not metaphorically, literally on the menu. The way a rabbit is, the way anything slow and soft and undefended ends up. You had no claws, no venom, no shell. You couldn't outrun what was hunting you. You couldn't fight it when it got close. The night wasn't yours. The open ground wasn't yours. Even the trees weren't safe. The things that ate you were already up there waiting. There's a skull in the fossil record. 2 clean puncture holes in the top of the cranium. The spacing matches a leopard's upper canines exactly. Whatever this individual was doing when it died, it wasn't hunting. It was being hunted. Carried up into a tree the same way leopards carry impala today. Eaten somewhere the scavengers couldn't reach. That skull is sitting in a museum case right now. Researchers argue about which species it belonged to. Nobody argues about what killed it. That skull isn't the exception. Australopithecus bones turn up at eagle kill sites, etched with talon signatures. Homo erectus fragments carry the bite marks of giant hyenas. For millions of years, we weren't apex predators. We were a food source. Thin-boned and slow, surviving on the margins of a world built to eat us. Then something changed. The predators that had hunted us for generations started avoiding our camps. The animals that defined the landscape of fear started disappearing, continent by continent, within thousands of years of us arriving. The thing that used to carry us up into trees started fearing the dark we lived in. This is the story of how that happened. Let's start with the forensics. The bones don't lie. Early hominin skeletons are light and thin-walled, built for endurance, not confrontation. No canines worth mentioning, no claws. A hyena covers our top sprint speed in a lazy trot. Line up our biology against the predators sharing that world, and it reads less like competition and more like a menu. Those predators were not the animals we have today. Pachycrocuta, the giant hyena, stood nearly a meter at the shoulder. Its jaws could splinter the femur of an elephant. Cave lions were running about 25% larger than modern lions. Picture the largest lion you've ever seen and add 100 pounds of muscle. Short-faced bears weren't just bigger than grizzlies. They were faster, with longer legs built for pursuit. These animals weren't dangerous the way modern predators are dangerous. They were dangerous the way a structural problem is dangerous. Pervasive, architectural, built into the environment itself. The fossil record confirms it. Australopithecus remains turn up at eagle kill sites, bones etched with talon signatures. Something aerial was picking our ancestors off the ground and carrying them somewhere to eat. This isn't inference, this is physical evidence. What that meant practically was a life built entirely around threat avoidance. Researchers call it the landscape of fear. You didn't forage at dawn or dusk. That's when the large cats moved. You didn't sleep on the ground if you could avoid it. You didn't approach a kill until the predator had fully moved off. Your territory wasn't defined by what you could defend. It was defined by where the apex killers weren't. Our ancestors were working the margins of other predators' kills, grabbing what they could between the departure of one dangerous animal and the arrival of the next, and frequently getting killed in the attempt. There are hominin sites where the bone assemblage makes it clear that humans were both the butchers and the butchered, sometimes in the same deposit. A slow, clawless, thin-boned primate was surviving this environment at all. Something was already working. The question is what, and what happened when it started compounding. The first real crack in the food chain doesn't appear in a cave or a jungle. It appears in a gravel pit in northern Germany. In 1995, construction workers in Schöningen hit something unexpected about 10 meters down in the sediment. 8 wooden spears, preserved in an anaerobic layer dating back roughly 300,000 years. each one between 6 and 7.5 feet long, weighted toward the front third, exactly like a modern javelin. Lying alongside them were the butchered remains of at least 10 horses. Bones cut and cracked in patterns that show systematic processing, not opportunistic scavenging. Someone planned this. Someone coordinated it. Someone threw those spears from a distance before the horses even knew they were being hunted. That distance is the whole story. When you can only kill something by getting within arm's reach, your biology is the only thing that matters. Teeth, claws, mass, speed. On every one of those metrics, early hominins lost. But a thrown spear rewrites the equation. The winner is no longer whoever is stronger. It's whoever can hold a mental model of the target's movement, calculate a release point, and put a sharpened shaft into a kill zone from 15 meters away. That's a cognitive problem, not a physical one. And we were already becoming experts at cognitive problems. Fire compounds this. Most people think about warmth and cooking, but the tactical applications mattered just as much. A fire ring at the camp perimeter kept large predators at a distance they weren't willing to cross. Fire could be carried toward a predator to drive it off a fresh kill. There's growing evidence that controlled burns were used to funnel megafauna through terrain features where hunters were waiting in ambush. Fire turned the landscape into a weapon. We were the only species on the steppe that knew how to use it. But weapons alone don't explain our rise. A single human with a spear and a torch is still dead if a cave lion decides to charge. What changed the math was those tools distributed across a coordinated group. Tool assemblages at hunting sites show a clear division of labor, different people, different tasks, planning that started days before the hunt. Someone scouted the herd. Someone crafted the weapons. Someone else drove the prey toward the kill point. That isn't instinct. It's a shared mental model of a future event, held simultaneously by multiple people who had to agree on the plan. Think about what this felt like from the prey's perspective. An animal charges a human with a spear, gets wounded, and the human retreats. It charges again. Nothing there to fight. The threat comes from a direction it can't close in on, at a range where speed and mass don't matter. Nothing in the history of its lineage had ever killed from a distance. The predator-prey dynamic had always been about proximity. Suddenly the rules changed, and the animals that had run the food chain for millions of years had no response. Cave lion bones have been recovered with clear spear wounds. Pachycrocuta starts declining in the fossil record right as hominin populations expand. The hunters were becoming the hunted, and they didn't even have a name for what was happening to them. Weapons explain the mechanism of our success. They don't explain the sheer speed of it. What separates us from every other predator that ever picked up an object is that we didn't just invent tools. We remembered how to make them better. We passed that memory forward. Each generation started from where the last one left off, instead of from scratch. A cave lion is just as dangerous at the end of its life as it was at the beginning. But the knowledge it gains dies with the animal. Our tools became compressed time. Hundreds of thousands of years of trial and failure loaded into the hands of a teenager who never had to figure out the physics of a spear on his own. That's cumulative culture. No other species on the Ice Age steppe had anything close to it. What made it possible was symbolic thinking. The stones marked with ochre, the deliberate burials, the cave paintings of animals rendered with anatomical accuracy. These are usually framed as early spirituality. They might have been, but they were also evidence of something tactically staggering. A brain that can represent an animal on a cave wall can hold that animal in mind when it isn't there. It can assign roles in relation to that animal. It can describe its behavior to someone who has never seen it before. That isn't just art. It's a planning infrastructure no predator could replicate or defend against. Language was the sharpest edge of this toolkit. You can tell your group where the mammoth herd was 2 days ago and which direction they were moving. You can describe a weakness, a bad leg, a tendency for the lead bull to break left when he gets startled. You can coordinate a hunt with people stationed at positions they can't even see from each other, all operating from the same shared mental map. Every other predator on the steppe was working with what it could directly see. We were running on a network. Then add persistence hunting. Humans can't outsprint anything worth eating, but our upright posture and bodies full of sweat glands gave us a different kind of edge. We could maintain a pace over several hours that four-legged animals couldn't sustain without overheating. Combine that with the ability to track prints and broken vegetation across a full day of travel, and you get a predation strategy that requires almost no physical confrontation. You don't have to be faster than the deer, you just have to outlast it. The megafauna extinctions are where all of this becomes forensic reality. When modern humans moved out of Africa and into new continents, large animals disappeared behind them in a pattern too consistent to be coincidence. Australia lost around 90% of its megafauna within a few thousand years of human arrival. The Americas saw similar collapses shortly after we showed up. Mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, all gone within a geologically brief window. These animals had survived ice ages and volcanic winters. They didn't survive us. We weren't physically dominant. We were the first predator they ever met that could learn faster than they could adapt. At some point, the behavioral shift ran the other direction. Large predators stopped raiding human camps. Long-term settlements ringed with fire and refuse pits show people living in one place for extended periods, with almost no large predator bones nearby. The animals that had defined the landscape of fear for millions of years were building their own version of that fear, and it was oriented entirely around us. And here's the conclusion. The slowest and weakest large mammal on the Ice Age steppe should have been an easy target. Instead, we ended the game for everyone else. Within about 10,000 years of humans arriving somewhere new, the giants usually vanished. Not because we outmuscled them, because we outthought them. We could remember, coordinate, and build on what came before, and every predator we met had no answer for that. That relentless compounding is your literal inheritance. Subscribe to see what your ancestors were actually capable of. Next video is waiting. Thanks for watching and see you next week.